Oh, hey there, what up? I'm Brenna Paxton, your guide to astral and earthly travel at astralaura.com. And I'm a projector in human design, and I've been wanting to share my experience and my experiment with being a projector since I discovered that I was one about 2 years ago, I think. And I'm not a human design expert by any means, especially since I just discovered the system 2 years ago. And I hear that you're really supposed to work on the experiment for a full 7 years before you might even have a full understanding of what your design means to you and how to work with your design. So no part of me is trying to claim to be a human design expert, but as a projector, I love delving deep into a lot of these topics and into self-reflection and self-inquiry and self-awareness. It's like my biggest hobby. So I really love talking about these topics with my friends and with you. And I especially find it helpful. Like, I personally love hearing about other people's experiences or perspectives on something that I can relate to. So I like hearing from other projectors about their design and their lives and what works for them and what they've discovered. So I thought I would go ahead and share some of my own discoveries and different realizations that really clicked for me of being a projector over a series of videos whenever I feel inspired to do so or have a new breakthrough. So I think to get this all started, the first thing I want to talk about is just simply the realization that I am a projector and what that meant to me when I discovered it. I do have to say that, dude, like, when I first read about being a projector, it just resonated so deeply that I think I probably cried about it. I mean, I cry about most things. Well, I guess actually that's where I should start. I'm a 1/4 projector with an emotional authority. So the emotions are really there. In astrology, I have a Pisces sun, a Cancer moon, 2 water signs, more crying, more emotions, and I'm a Taurus rising, the one thing that really helps keep me grounded. And let's see what else. In Vedic astrology, there's not a ton that actually changes with my chart, which I find really intriguing, but I maintain being a Cancer moon and a Taurus rising, but it changes to an Aquarius sun from a Pisces sun. And I just mentioned that because I also really relate to Aquarius. My Saturn is in Aquarius, all of those things. Just so you know, there's a weird little foundation of who I am astrally. And I think that's relevant when talking about human design or sharing those experiences, right? So astrology has always been really potent for me, and that's something I've studied a lot longer than human design. And I still don't consider myself to be an expert in astrology, but I am more advanced on that path than human design. And even though astrology resonates and I see it as something that helps me understand how to transcend my chart so that I can really understand the energies that I'm working with, so that I can learn from them, learn how to work with them, learn how to integrate facets of life that I maybe hadn't been paying attention to previously. Really bringing that awareness, right? So once you have awareness of something, you're then able to work with that in a whole new way with consciousness. You can work with it consciously once you become aware of it. So astrology has always been really profound for me in my life, really helpful. But I guess I just mentioned that because human design, when I first read about being a projector, it like struck me in this whole deep way that astrology never really did. Love astrology. I still think it's just as profound. But it was such a miracle to find something to explain all of the challenges I had growing up in my lifetime. and to find something that I could implement so quickly, just subtle shifts of perspective that made such a huge difference in my life with seemingly little shifts. Hope that makes sense. So dude, the first thing that really struck me when I learned about being a projector is that projectors have to wait to be invited or recognized, which really, it's talking about the same concept, right? So a projector has this perspective and viewpoint on life, on the world, on whatever topics fascinate them, that are potentially very different perspectives than what the average person is comprehending or perceiving or thinking about. So in order for someone to receive the insights or guidance from a projector, the other person really has to recognize on a soul level that this person, this projector, is a guide of theirs. Ooh, I actually can feel this like thing that I'm channeling right now come through me, which I'm excited about because I realized that this came to me the other night as I was falling asleep and I forgot about it, and I'm remembering right now. Which is that I honestly feel like projectors are, okay, I'm gonna just say this, but then I have a caveat afterwards. I honestly feel that projectors are spiritual guides for other people living on Earth right now. And that sounds like a big statement because it could sound like there's ego involved in that. And I don't want that to be there. And I don't want there to be like a hierarchy where the projector who is a guide, it puts them above someone else that they're guiding. I don't mean that. So that's the caveat. But what I do mean, and what I have seen and what I feel and what I've been shown by the cosmos is that projectors truly are, they have the potential to be a true embodiment of a spiritual guide that can guide other souls that are incarnated on Earth simultaneously at the same moment. So it's interesting because it almost feels like a spirit guide, but in human body form. And I honestly believe that it's almost like projectors have people who look to them as a guide, like from a soul level. So their soul, their higher self, sees these projectors as being pivotal guides on their own path of ascension. So yes, everyone's truest guide is their own highest self and source. But of course, you know, we're interconnected beings. We aren't actually separated, right? So when it comes to the journey of remembering and the journey of awakening, we really need other people that we resonate with on a soul level to help us, to help reframe different perspectives so that we can release limiting beliefs, to help us become aware of new things so that we can work with them consciously, to help us grow in the direction that our soul desires, to help us expand. And I feel as though projectors, and especially because I've read that apparently, you know, projectors are the newest type to appear on Earth. And that makes sense to me. If you think about the concept of like in the evolution of the human race, of people existing on Earth, it's almost like if you think about the Maslow hierarchy of needs or something, it's like, you know, you have to focus on your core survival needs in order to work your way up to have your emotional needs met, whatever, to then get to self-actualization. And I truly feel that projectors are guides for self-actualization. And it can look different in every different realm, right? So not saying that every projector has to hone in on the same tools or skills, because self-actualization can be met in an infinite number of ways, and it's different for everyone. But it makes sense to me that the, more evolved the human race becomes, the more projectors would show up to guide them to their next level of self-actualization. And in turn, like a projector isn't just born having the full understanding of the human experience in order to be that guide immediately. You'll often find, projectors, they really are born with an innate wisdom. But there's something to learning about life on Earth and life as a human, and going throughout that experience yourself, facing a lot of pain, challenges, difficulties, the highs and the lows, the whole gamut of emotions, in order to understand how humans work, and arguably to understand how generators in the human design system work. Because I've also heard that projectors primarily are here to guide generators, since generators are the majority of the population. And I think that kind of relates to more just understanding a system and a way of working that the majority of our society has been built upon, and it's been kind of built in a generator-esque way. So I'm not sure if that necessarily means that we really are meant to only guide generators or not. I think that we can guide a plethora of people. Projectors can guide other projectors. Actually, that is so nice when that happens, because as a projector, what our auras do, right, they're penetrating, and we can really go into the heart and the aura of another being. And I experience it. So this is what I experience. I have no idea if this is how all projectors, if this is like just how it works for projectors or not. So let me know about your experience, because I'd be very interested to compare and just to hear about what it's like for you. But for me, I essentially feel like I have an immediate ability to connect with a person's highest, most eternal, evolved self. So I don't tend to like see people as just their small human form. I see them in their full potential. And because I have such an immediate and deep connection to the highest self of a person, when they're asking me for guidance, I often or always feel that the guidance is coming from their highest self, as it should, and just channeling through me. So it's not necessarily that it's my wisdom that is what that person needs. It's their own wisdom that they need. I'm just the vehicle through which that wisdom can arrive and be heard by them. Or like a mirror, I can reflect it back to them, but I'm reflecting back to them a really deep part of their soul that they might not be able to access as easily on their own. So that's how that works for me. But because of that, because we are these guides, the idea of someone needing to recognize you is so crucial, right? Because I almost see it as, if we go with this whole concept, which I'm hoping that this is, like I'm like really channeling this from source right now. So I hope this is aligning. I don't want to misstep, since I don't consider myself to be a human design expert at all. Just a very psychic projector, that's all I am. Yes. So if we're going with that concept of essentially a projector being the physical embodiment of a spiritual guide to a group of people, a group of souls, then the recognition is a heart-centered, soul-deep recognition from a person recognizing the projector as their guide. And we all have many guides, right? So I do feel that this recognition, that could sound very rare, I guess, but I don't think it is. Like, I think that a lot of people, we have different guides. So just because someone recognizes me as their guide doesn't mean I'm their only guide, right? I'm just one of them. And that also makes sense in the capacity that we are all connected, we all come from source, we're all the same. In a sense, our higher selves are all the same highest self. So it's like a different facet of, a different color of the energy that is guiding them. And so if someone recognizes me as one of their people, as a soul friend, and that's the thing too, is that some people are not super conscious of, you know, they wouldn't use the words, oh, I recognize that person as a soul friend. Soul fam, you know, like, oh yeah, there's my soul fam. Like, I feel like I recognize that like so instantly. Like, I'll walk past someone on the street and you just look at each other like, what up, soul fam? Like, and that's it. You don't talk to each other. And then you just have, you know, that random coworker at work that just like clicks with you, and you know that, you know, you resonate. So like for me, I might think like, oh, soul fam, but they might not have that conscious awareness of that, and they might just be like, man, I really click with you, I get along with you, and just see it as like a friend level. So people aren't necessarily going to be articulating it that way, but I think the key point of them needing to be recognized as a projector is that you are a guide for many people, and if they don't, it's not even about them acknowledging it, because that's the thing. That's a misconception. They'll say, you know, like, if you're a projector, you need to be invited, and it needs to be a verbal invite. It needs to be a very clear invite. Yes, it does. But the thing is that it can be a very clear energetic invite. So I think that what that comes down to is you as a projector, how discerning are you? How tuned into things are you? Because I often feel very clear invites from people, but it is all energetic. But if I was in an earlier stage in my development, in my ascension process, or my journey of remembering and awakening, I may not have had, and I didn't have, the internal discernment necessary to truly read when I'm receiving a very clear energetic invitation from someone. So in that sense, I did really need it to be a straightforward, even verbalized, very clear invitation. But in true projector style, I'm just musing right now, but I want to get back around to when I realized I was a projector and how it explained like all of my life problems when I was younger. So when I was young, I was very outspoken, and I mean, I still am. I'm very extroverted. I love communicating with people. I love musing. I love philosophizing, just having deep chats, right? Which is why I'm doing this with you right now. And I love seeing how systems work, how people believe in certain things that lead to certain actions. I'm really fascinated by society, by religion. I have been forever. I was born this weird. I didn't get into it. Like, people ask me always how I got into all of the things that I'm into, and I was born with this innate fascination for how humans try to make sense of being alive. I think is what it really comes down to. That's been my ultimate fascination since I was a very, very small child. And because of that, I've always been so curious. Like, if someone says a statement that's not clear to me, I immediately want to know, like, oh my God, tell me your thinking and process behind that. Like, why are you saying that? And so when I was younger, and I mean, you know, as early as starting school, like starting kindergarten, even before that, I've always been this way. I would ask these questions or go to the next step, and I would share my insights, because it's almost like I would jump over the questions, or I would think that it was so obvious that the way someone was thinking about something was so clearly wrong or not helpful or constructive, just based around some false programming or something. To me, because I was a small child that didn't have very much experience being a human yet, I would immediately assert, like, well, why aren't you doing it this way? Or what about this? Or are you sure that that's the way to think about that? Because really, if you think about it this way, then blah, 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 blah. And oh my God, I always got in trouble. Like, I was always in trouble. I mean, not super like punished, but it was not appreciated that I was saying these things aloud. And I think a lot of the times my teachers thought that I was being really critical of them or trying to correct them. And I understand why they perceived it that way. That's probably how it came off. So fine, whatever. But it's because I didn't understand that I needed to, well, no. It was so innate to me to think this way that I just couldn't comprehend that other people weren't thinking that way. That's like the biggest part of it. I could not comprehend that the thoughts going on in my head were not going on in everyone else's heads. So that I think is a really big thing for a projector. And I've even had to work on this a lot, like lately, is understanding, you know, when you're reading any projector advice or anything, you'll hear like I hear Erin Claire Jones saying this a lot. I want to honor the people that I've really enjoyed learning from, which is Pilar Lesko. Hey girl, love you. I want to work with you so much more. We're going to do that. Who knows if she'll even ever see this. But Pilar Lesko, look her up, fellow projector, and I just think she's great. Soul fan. Erin Claire Jones, who I follow mostly on Instagram. I think a lot of people know her. And I've never received a direct session from her, but I really enjoy her little snippets of wisdom. And then Interior Creature, I love that blog. I don't even know who it is that's running that blog, but good job, Interior Creature. Please keep cranking out content because it's awesome, but on your own time, you know, no rush. And so those three sources are people that I've really have valued their insight. And Pilar Lesko is the first person I got a reading from who really opened some awareness for me, gave me a lot of interesting insight. So yes, and then also like ridiculous amounts, I'm sure you get it, if you're a projector you get it, ridiculous amounts of Googling and just like seeing what I can find. I think that also has to do, again, not an expert, with my 1-4, because I think the 1 is like the investigator, and so I'm really into going really deep into these topics and just like researching. So anyway, what am I even saying? Pilar Lesko has said multiple times that, wait, no, maybe this was Erin Claire Jones. It doesn't matter. I'm getting way too into these weeds right now. Both of them have said versions of this, that the projector's insight and value is in how you perceive things, not what you're doing, which really that's just common knowledge. So of course they're all going to talk about this. All human design articles about projectors will mention something about this, right? So it's like our perspective is what is so unique to us. And I think that's one of the hardest things to like reprogram in a sense, because our perspective is so obvious it's like so innate, it's just who we are, right? That it's really hard sometimes to comprehend that other people don't think about things the way that you do. And that for me has been critical in developing like my self-worth, especially as an entrepreneur. Because if I want to offer my gifts to the world, well, my gifts are what? My perspective. And I've been conditioned in this generator world where I think that I have to do. I have to keep doing things. And that just me sharing who I am and my perspective on life is not enough. So to convince myself that that's more than enough, that that's the whole thing, that's the whole meal, that's not just one course. You know, the whole thing is just me showing up, sharing who I am and my perspective on life and the things that I'm interested in and excited by. That's like what I need to be doing. And honestly, me recording this video is me trying to step into that more fully. Because for so long, I thought that, well, this stuff is so obvious to people. This would be boring for me to share with them. And that's the other thing, is like, I'm always trying to blow my own mind. I love blowing my own mind. I just love researching. I love discovering things. I love channeling downloads from the cosmos and just being like, whoa, what the heck? And it's been like a joke in my life of my friends making fun of me for always having profound realizations and epiphanies, because I have one every 3 hours. But I do, they're like that profound. I don't use that word lightly, and yet I have so many epiphanies and realizations on the daily basis. And so because I so love blowing my own mind, I often think that I need to blow everyone else's mind, and that only the things that are gonna blow my mind are the things that are gonna blow other people's minds. And that is wrong. I'm so curious. If you're a projector, tell me if you feel this way also, or if this is like something that's gone on in your head. Have to know. I'm dying to know. So I truly thought that like I couldn't share anything that wasn't epically mind-blowing to me. But here's where that's a major problem. And again, I don't want this to sound like it has any ego, but I'm very serious when I say that like I'm 29. Am I 29? I don't understand time. I don't know. I'm 29. I am. I just checked. And I feel like I've spent all 29 years just epically researching things and epically researching myself, like deep self-awareness. It's literally all I do. It's all I'm always thinking about, which is why I have so many realizations constantly. But because of that, sometimes it's hard for me to acknowledge that I'm like really far down the path of self-awareness. And again, that doesn't make me better than anyone at all whatsoever. I'm just saying that there is a path that needs to be gone down, and that it is a very long path. In fact, it's a never-ending path. And yes, sometimes people can, do parts of the path really quickly. But I do feel that once you commit to the path of illumination, that's like where it begins. So I committed to that path a long time ago, very consciously when I was maybe 13 years old, but even before then. And yeah, I mean, like I've my whole life has been on that path. And so because of that, sometimes it's hard for me to acknowledge, especially because I truly see the divinity and the profound wisdom in every person I come across. And especially because, like I said earlier, I immediately connect with people's like highest self. Not immediately, it takes a second if they recognize me, but then it happens real quick after that. And sorry, I paused because I'm contemplating if that only happens if someone recognizes me or not. I think it happens for everyone. That's what we do as projectors. I shouldn't have said it that way. That anyone I meet, I connect with their higher self, but I might not be their guide. And if they don't recognize me as their guide, then I gotta shut the fuck up and not say anything. I mean, I can say whatever, but not give them direct advice or something. It's not gonna go well, right? I'll talk about that later. So, anyway. Okay, wow, I really lost my train of thought there for a second, but I'm back and I remember what I was gonna say. So, because I recognize people so deeply and I recognize their innate wisdom, it's really hard for me sometimes to remember that I'm farther down a path of awareness than they might be. And because of that, something that I figured out or realized many, many years ago that just seems like this very obvious, almost mundane thing to me could be profoundly mind-blowing and expanding and important for someone else to hear, specifically if I am their guide. And that was really mind-blowing for me to comprehend because, like I was saying, I think that our perspective is so innate to us that it can be hard for us to validate that being enough. It can be hard for us to realize that our perspective is our magic and that other people don't have that perspective, especially if you surround yourself with other really self-aware people or people who are also committed to this path and the conversations you have are mind-blowing to you. It might seem like, oh, well, you know, they know about the basics of astrology, or it's very, awareness and transformation is very clear to us, so it's like very clear to everyone. No, not the case. So I started understanding that, and this was really preventing me from like showing up in my business, because I was so focused on only delivering insights that were mind-blowing to me at the time. But I had to learn to understand that if something is mind-blowing to me, it's because I'm still learning it and I'm not yet ready to teach it. Now, I think this applies to all projectors, correct me if I'm wrong, but projectors really go really deep into things to become an expert of a thing, of a topic, of a body of work, of a concept. And because of that, I feel the way I personally experience that is that I'm going really deep into a topic and I have to dive really deep into it. And I'm also trying to create new insights, new discoveries within that topic. So it's not just that I'm trying to learn something that someone else figured out. It's that I'm trying to figure my own things out related to that. I want to come up with my own systems, and not for some, I mean, just because that's what excites me. That's what I do naturally. I love connecting things in new ways, connecting things that are seemingly disconnected, understanding different patterns that maybe people haven't picked up on in a similar way as I have, whatever. And so because of that, I spend years going down that path of honing in on and refining what it is that I am systemizing or developing or comprehending so that I can then share it later. So because I care so much about having the idea fully fleshed out and formed and understood by me, it's like I don't want to share anything that I don't fully understand. And I do enjoy sharing the process like I am now with human design, right? Like I don't consider myself an expert, and yet I feel totally comfortable talking about this. But that is because I feel confident in my experience and understanding of what it meant to realize I'm a projector. So I have like secure confidence in speaking about that because it's about my experience. But if I'm trying to teach someone something about this broader topic that could apply to many people, I have to understand the full depth of it before I can really show up and share it with people. And so what I was discovering and analyzing, like, why am I feeling so blocked from communicating the things that I want to communicate, is because I was able to correlate that when something blows my mind, it's because I don't have it fully figured out yet and it's new to me. And I'm not ready to share things that are new to me because I want to have that sense of I know what I'm talking about so that you can trust me here. I don't want to just be spurting things out that could be totally wrong and leading you astray, because I take my role as a guide very seriously and I don't want to lead anyone astray with false information or information that I haven't tested out or that has been true to me. So I was stuck in this pattern where I thought that because I wasn't honoring my own unique perspective as being the gold of my business or of who I am, that was making me think I could only share really mind-blowing things because I needed it to like wow people, since my regular perspective on life isn't enough. But then that would trap me, because anytime I wanted to share something mind-blowing, I would start trying to write it or record a video about it or something, and I wouldn't have the full comprehension of that topic yet, so I didn't feel confident in sharing it. So then I would never share anything. So a big thing I had to reprogram and decondition was the fact that my own unique perspective is enough, because it is. And I think that's something I just really want to reiterate to you, my projector friend, is that it is enough. Just who you are and your take on life is golden, beautiful, glorious. Please share it with the world, even if you think it's mundane and obvious to other people, because it's not. It's not. So that was a really huge part of me discovering, in my experiment of discovering that I'm a projector. That was huge, was like, oh my gosh, I had no clue that I thought about things so differently. So if we go back to my childhood or whatever, giving those examples of how I was constantly getting in trouble, it was like the first part was that I really did not comprehend that the way I perceived things was so different from other people. So then I couldn't comprehend why people were so upset when I would share my perspective. So then you add that other piece in there, which is the most obvious, like, you know, the strategy for the projector being to wait to be invited, wait to be recognized. So since I didn't understand that either, I can now see how so many problems that I caused were because I was giving unsolicited advice that I thought was obvious to people who did not ask for it, who did not recognize me, and who didn't recognize me as a guide. So I think I also want to mention, to add into this convo here, you know, just being a younger person, a kid, a child, adds to this, because I think projectors truly are, and most people, really, people, every person is born with this innate wisdom that we are conditioned into ignoring or acting as though it's not wisdom. And so projectors, I think especially, have paired with that unique perspective, their innate wisdom is very profound, but when you're a little kid, people brush it off like, oh, silly kid, you know, just don't listen to them. And so I think that also adds to this whole dilemma, because it's like it like reiterates to you in your subconscious over and over that your perspective is irrelevant, that it doesn't matter, that it would be better if you didn't share your perspective. And I think that's why that programming can be so intense, is because often as projectors, our perspective is what's gotten us in trouble our entire lives. Our perspective and sharing that perspective is what's made us feel ashamed or embarrassed or unloved or unworthy or rejected or neglected or dismissed. You know, any of those really hard emotions, especially for a child, they're always hard, but you know, everything is amplified and more difficult when you're younger. And so I think that it can be so hard to decondition that and to really own the fact that your perspective is enough and your perspective is more than enough, because our perspective is seemingly what caused so many problems for us growing up. But that's why the understanding of allowing the other people to invite us, whether that be verbally or energetically, where really, I think the reason I always reiterate the energetic part so much more is because someone can give you a verbal invitation and it not actually be a real invitation. It can be like, yeah, what do you think? And they like don't really want to know. So that's why the energetic invitation is so much more important, to really like listen and honor that, if you can make sure you have the discernment around it. But I think that is what made me see and reframe all those moments of hurt and pain when I was younger, not as being my problem or caused by my perspective, but being caused by a premature sharing of my perspective to someone who wasn't ready for it, because they didn't recognize me, they didn't invite me, and so me sharing my perspective in that moment did more harm than good. So that was profound for me. Profound. I think having that understanding at the time when I had that understanding, okay, I think like, you know, about 2 years ago, I was working at a corporate job as a graphic designer, as an art director, and my bosses did not recognize me. And that was really difficult. I've always like, you know, been working in situations where the people I'm directly working with don't necessarily recognize me, and that makes life really difficult, especially when you're trying to own your expertise and your title and step forward into your role, and then the people above you don't recognize you and are resistant to it. That's really challenging, and I would feel such a constant conflict of trying to prove myself. And once I had this understanding, it gave me permission to stop trying to prove myself and to kind of back up, own my own authority and perspective, and just be. It's like it allowed me to stop trying so hard, and I could just exist and understand that my existence was beautiful, and I didn't need to try and prove that to anyone, and that I didn't need to try and get people to recognize me. I think that's another thing, that as soon as someone learns they're a projector, they think like, how can I get someone to recognize me? That's not how it works, because it's not about them recognizing your expertise or recognizing your knowledge or recognizing how good you are at what you do. No, it's a soul level recognition of, am I in some way related? Do I vibe energetically with? Is this person soul fam? Like that kind of recognition. It's a heart recognition, and it's one that cannot be forced, cannot be like you can't try to manipulate that. If you do, that's just gonna, blow up in your face. It's not gonna work. All that to say, some people can cultivate that recognition over time as they let down some of their barriers potentially and start to tune more inward. But something else that I find interesting is that I think sometimes people who do recognize you on a subconscious level might be so afraid of themselves that they don't turn inward ever, and they cut their inner knowing and their intuition off. And in doing so, they start to almost interpret their inner knowing as something that is against them or like triggers them because they've cut it off from themselves. So if you do have like a soul recognition with them, and this can be confusing because you might feel that and then think that that means that that's the invitation, kind of, because you feel it. But the other person might only be feeling it subconsciously, and it actually triggers them and then makes them dislike you because you're representing a part of themselves that they don't want to interact with. So that's where, especially that like verbal invitation is important. And also, I see that as like a progression. Like that person might be resistant to the fact that they might recognize you at first, and therefore not recognize you, and you shouldn't be like sharing guidance with them. But then if they over time kind of let that guard down within themselves and go on their own inner journey of healing, there might come a moment in time when they do recognize you and they aren't triggered by it, and they do invite you to share your guidance with them. So I do think that there are chances for it to shift, but it's not like it's not like you didn't have a connection and now you do. It's like the connection is either there or it isn't. I think with all people, I don't think that's something you can change. But I'm just using this to illustrate what it might look like if that does change. It's not because the recognition changed, it's because the person within themselves no longer feels triggered by their recognition of you. Does that make sense? So, yeah. I want to share way more about this, obviously, but I've gone on and on for a while. So please let me know how this resonates with you. I seriously want to know if you're a projector. I just want to know about your experience. I want to know if this clicks with you, if you have different experiences, if any certain things that I said made you have new realizations or reminded you of something that was really important for you to realize about being a projector. I'm so curious. I'd love to talk to you about it, and I hope that you'll reach out. So you can find me on Instagram at Astral. You can find me on Facebook. I'm just Brenna Paxton. Hi. Here on YouTube. And where else? Where else do I show up? I mean, that's kind of it, actually. Instagram, reach out. Facebook, reach out. Leave comments below. You know what to do. And then, obviously my website, astralaura.com. You can go there also. If you are interested in receiving guidance, channeled guidance, if you want to journey to the astral plane with me and do some intergalactic shamanism, some past life, understanding, unfolding, if you want to consult the Akashic records, if you need a chakra clearing, and attunement and activation. If you want to reprogram your past timelines in order to really hit the origin point of a trauma at the source so it can trickle down and transform your entire life, astralaura.com. I'm here to serve you. It would be an honor to serve you, friend. I love you so much. Have a good day, all right? I'll see you later.